We've all heard it, haven't we? That old business saying, everyone is a salesperson. It gets repeated so much, it almost feels like a fact. The idea being everyone in the company, whatever their job, should be thinking about sales, about closing deals. But what if?
Yeah.
What if that's not quite right? Or maybe, according to the material we're looking at today, it kind of misses the bigger picture.
Well, that's exactly the challenge posed by our source material for this deep dive. We're looking at Chapter 9 of the Business Development Body of Knowledge, and it takes that old saying head on. It's not saying sales isn't vital. It absolutely is, but it suggests a different way to think about how everyone contributes to growth.
Okay, a different way.
Mhm.
And this leads to a really quite a surprising idea, doesn't it? Not everyone's a salesperson, maybe, but
Right.
everyone is in business development. That's the core premise here.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
the statement. And our job today really is to unpack that. Why does this distinction matter so much? What does it mean for roles, for structure? And we're sticking only to what's in this specific material, to see how it shifts our thinking.
Right. So let's explore this together. Where do we start? How does the source differentiate sales from this broader business development idea?
Okay. So first, it gives a very precise definition for sales. It says sales is the transfer of ownership and title to property from one person to another for a price.
Very straightforward.
Yeah.
Transactional, the moment of exchange.
Exactly. Pure transaction.
Yeah.
And the source respects the skill involved. It calls salespeople highly skilled with a very special skill set that takes years to perfect. Skilled specifically at converting prospects efficiently.
So it acknowledges the expertise needed for that specific closing function, but then it contrasts this with the idea that, well, everyone fits under the business development umbrella.
That's the pivot. While sales is that specific skill, the source argues everyone is in business development. And it makes this case by dividing all employees into just two main groups.
Two groups. Okay, what are they?
You have the business developer and the business development enabler.
Right. Let's get the source's definition straight. A business developer is any employee directly influencing prospect or customer perceptions.
Directly influencing perception. And the business development enabler. That's all other employees support the business developers. And they do this by efficiently and effectively leveraging corporate assets.
So direct influence versus enabling that influence through support. The examples the source gives might help clarify this.
Yeah, they're quite clear. A frontline billable employee, maybe someone working directly at a customer site that's a business developer. Their actions, their work, it's constantly shaping how that customer sees the company right then and there.
Makes sense. And the enabler example.
Think of someone in the back office, maybe accounting. The source uses the example of managing timesheets for those frontline business developers. They're not talking to the end customer, no. But by managing those internal things well, using the company's systems, the assets, they free up the business developer to focus on the client.
Okay, I see the distinction. But here's where it gets really interesting, I think. The source says every single employee has a customer. Is that right? Whether they're a developer or an enabler.
Yes. And this is a key shift in perspective offered by this material. For the business developer, it's what you'd expect. Their customer is the buyers of your product, the external customer.
Standard definition.
But the enabler.
Their customer, according to the source, is the business developers, the internal team member they support.
Okay. So the accounting person's customer isn't the external client, but the consultant whose timesheet they're processing. Exactly. And it's not just a label. The material says BD enablers need to implement customer experience methods. Think about that. Applying CX principles internally to maximize the business developer effectiveness and efficiency.
Wow. So HR, IT, legal, finance, their job is to make the internal customer experience smooth and effective.
Precisely. Because any friction or delay internally, it ultimately impacts the external customer experience. It slows things down, creates problems. The enabler needs to ensure their internal interaction helps, not hinders.
That internal customer idea really could change how support functions see their impact, couldn't it? Makes their link to the final sale much clearer. And this structure, these roles, they lead into a visual model the source uses as a sort of pyramid.
Yes, the business development team model, shown in Figure 1 and 2, its structure and layers, and crucially, right at the very top, the pinnacle is the customer.
The ultimate focus.
Not the CEO.
No, the customer. Below them is the business developer layer, those directly influencing customer perceptions of quality, as the source puts it. Sitting between the enablers and the customer, shaping that perception through interaction.
Exactly. And then the foundation, the base layer, is the business development enabler group, their role. Leverage corporate assets to support business developers.
This completely flips the typical org chart, doesn't it? Usually you see HQ or the CEO at the top.
Right. And the source points this out directly. It says companies often invert the pyramid, putting leadership at the top. The potential danger there, it argues, is becoming out of touch with their customers.
Mm-hmm.
This BD team model is designed specifically to counter that. Customer firmly at the top. Everything else is organized to serve them, directly or indirectly.
It creates a really clear path, a line of sight from the internal support functions right up to the person buying the product or service.
Yeah.
So if everyone has a customer, internal or external, and they fit into this structure,
Yeah.
how does this all connect back to, the big goals, growth, company value?
Okay, this is where the idea of the brand comes in, as defined by the source. It's not just a logo. The brand is described as a container of trust.
A container of trust. I like that phrasing. Something you fill over time.
Exactly. And branding then isn't just marketing campaigns. According to this material, branding is the act of filling the brand trust with promises kept.
Mm.
Every single interaction, every delivery that meets expectations, every internal process that works smoothly, it adds to that trust. Every failure potentially drains it.
So building trust is branding, and the source identifies specific ways to build it.
It highlights 3 key drivers: purpose, empathy, and truth.
Purpose, empathy, truth sounds fundamental.
They're presented as the engine, really, the fuel for what the source calls the brand trust flywheel. It describes this kind of positive feedback loop. When you operate with purpose, empathy, and truth, you build trust. Greater trust increases brand value.
Okay, makes sense.
But at the same time, those same drivers, purpose, empathy, truth, they also boost employee engagement internally.
So it works both externally on the brand and internally on the team.
Precisely. And that higher employee engagement. The source links it directly to delivering positive customer experiences. Engaged people who get the purpose, who act with empathy and honesty, they're just better at keeping promises. And those positive customer experiences, along with the rising brand value, well, that drives corporate growth, which ultimately increases the total value of the corporation. It all connects.
That's like a reinforcing cycle. Trust builds value, engagement builds better experiences build growth,
Mhm.
and it all feeds back. And whose job is it to keep this flywheel spinning, according to the source?
Everyone's, every single employee, it's stated very clearly. Everyone is responsible because they directly or indirectly impact the delivery of a corporation's promises to the customer.
So the business developer making the promise and the business development enabler making sure the systems work so the promise can be kept.
Yes. That person processing the invoice accurately, the IT support, keeping the systems running, the person managing the supply chain, they are all impacting trust. They're all part of keeping that flywheel moving, filling that container of trust.
It really integrates everyone. It shows how vital those back office or support roles are, not just as overhead, but as active contributors to the customer relationship and growth.
Absolutely. The BD enabler's role isn't secondary, it's essential infrastructure for success. Their efficiency in leveraging assets directly enables the business developer. It's a partnership.
And the source even mentions the Global Business Development Association and some kind of certification.
Yeah, it mentions a 30-minute business growth practitioner certification, presented as a tool, really, to help employees across the board learn how to succeed as one BD team.
One BD team. That phrase really captures the essence of this whole framework, doesn't it?
It brings it right back to the start. Not everyone is a salesperson, focused only on the close. But everyone is in business development, working together, enabling each other, all focused on building trust and delivering on promises to that customer at the top of the pyramid.
Okay, let's try and boil this down then. For everyone listening, what are the really crucial takeaways from this source material we've just unpacked?
Well, I think takeaway number 1 has to be that core redefinition. Forget everyone's a salesperson. According to this material, it's everyone is in business development. You're either directly influencing the customer's view or you're enabling those who do. That's the fundamental shift.
Right, redefinition first. Second takeaway.
The 2 roles, business developer and business development enabler. And maybe more importantly, the insight that everyone has a customer, either the external buyer or critically the internal business developer. And that implies the need for, well, internal customer experience focus from the enablers.
Okay, the 2 roles and the internal-external customer idea. Got it. And the third key takeaway.
I'd say it's the connection to the bigger picture through that customer centric pyramid model and the brand trust flywheel. Understanding how the customer at the top aligns everyone, and how purpose, empathy, and truth act as drivers. How they link every employee's actions, direct or indirect, to brand value, to engagement, to customer experience, and ultimately to growth and the total value of the company. It connects the dots for everyone.
It definitely provides a framework for seeing how every single role contributes, pushing against that siloed thinking. Which leads to a final thought, maybe something for you to consider, drawn from this material. What if? What if every single person in your organization truly understood who their specific customer was within this model, whether external or internal, and they really focused intensely on serving that customer, using customer experience methods, leveraging assets effectively?
Yeah, what kind of change could that really drive? Not just smoother internal stuff or better engagement scores, but what kind of radical shift might you see in your overall effectiveness? And maybe most importantly, in that external customer experience that fuels all the growth?
Something powerful to think about. That's all the time we have for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.